Hello and welcome to the RT Development Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rosignol, and we're back after a few weeks for the holidays. So I hope everyone had a great holidays. Happy New Year to everyone. But we're excited to get back. We got some good guests lined up the next couple of weeks, and we're excited to get this new year rolling and get the podcast, uh, continue to grow the podcast, continue to provide as much information and value as we can for you so that you can take the information and apply it to help better you or your athlete or your athletes if you're a coach. But our goal here is to continue to provide the information and give our athletes or the athletes out there the ability to continue to improve this game. The skill level is getting better and better every day. And so we want to make sure that you're out there taking the right steps to take that next step and help yourself continue to develop. And right now, development is definitely the most important thing that you can do, not only just this time of year, but just overall. If you want to continue to grow in this game, you have to focus on development because guys are throwing harder, guys are hitting the ball harder. And so you can't just go out there and just play a ton of games and hope that you start to raise what we like to call your floor or your ceiling without actually putting in the work to make that happen, right? Every athlete has a floor and a ceiling without doing any work, but you got to make sure you're continuing to do stuff to help raise that floor and ceiling so that you're continuously, one, getting better, but two, going out there and being able to compete with the guys around you. And that all starts with development and having a plan built around development and being able to know what you're working on and having then a process of making sure you're taking those steps in your work to get you where you're trying to get. And if you're an athlete trying to play at the college level, understanding where you need to get. If you're a guy who's trying to get drafted and go play pro ball, understanding what you need from that perspective. So having this information and then having a plan to help develop that is really important. And it kind of leads me into what today's topic is how to separate yourself from the average high school player. This is a question that has been asked to us. It gets asked in many different ways every day by our athletes, but this question was recently brought up to us, and so I thought it would be a good time to go over some habits that these athletes typically have that helps separate them and helps them put themselves at that next step. And we could talk about like physical maturity and physicalness, and that is a piece of it. And some guys have a little bit more and some guys don't. That's just a fact. But there are things that you can do to help separate yourself and take those next steps. And even those guys who maybe have a little bit more without, like at some point that runs out. So you still have to have these things that you do and a process that you follow to help you continue to grow. Because if you're not growing, you will get left behind in this game. And that's just a fact, unfortunately. Or not unfortunately. I think it's for the better as guys are getting better every day. The overall floor of the game is raising every day, even at the lowest level or the least. I don't know the best way to explain it, but the lowest level of game, even that the floor is rising every day, just because more and more guys are doing more. What I mean more is by training, doing things that going out and just doing skill work. And even if it's on their own, they're still putting in more time than ever before. So I'd say one, as we go into this topic, I have three different kind of topics or subtopics that I want to talk with helps you separate yourself from a high school player. But the first one I'm going to say is being in the weight room. And now this seems really simple. And it's honestly, if you're not in the weight room already, you're not going to separate yourself. And that's the one thing I think that's helped change this game or made the game continue to evolve at a much faster rate is one, guys are training way more now. And if you're not trained, you get left behind. Two, they have a actual plan of what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish each day. They're not just going in and just kind of randomly going to the gym and kind of coming up with things on the fly. And that's kind of leads me into what I mean by going there and having a plan. Have a plan that is tailored to you so that you can do the things that are going to help you take those next steps. You know, for our guys, especially our high schoolers, like we are able to get them on the force plates. We're able to get them on the timing gates and see how they are as a runner. But when we take that force plate data, we're able to look through the data and find out where can you help yourself take that next step so that you're, one, doing the right things on the training floor, but two, watching or following your progress or making sure you're having progress or you're making progress. And then if for some reason you're not making progress with what you're doing, then you know when you need to kind of alter the plan and reevaluate what you need to do and what can help you take those next steps. And so just blindly going to the gym and just doing whatever isn't really an option when it comes to trying to separate yourself to the next level. And so, you know, the days, I mean, from a plan perspective is when you're, you know, we hear it all the time. Like, oh, I had arm day yesterday. Then I had chest and back day tomorrow. Then I have legs and abs. And that's just not a plan that's going to help set you up for success. In the beginning, you might get stronger. You might put on some size. And for a guy who's just starting out, that's probably going to help you out. But if you're trying to take that next step, it needs to be more specific. It needs to be more tailored, but also less individual movements and more compound movements. And when we talk about compound movements, we're talking trap bar or just deadlift variations, squat variations, split squat variations. And then on the upper body, we're talking some sort of overhead press, a bench press, chin-ups, things like that. And those are more specific. I think all guys, even when they're going to the gym on their own, they're hitting those movements, but having a plan of how you should hit them. For a guy who might need a more focus on speed and power, like being able to understand based off your force plate data that's how you need to train. Or if a guy who needs more strength and power and is already really fast from the force plate data, then where you can use that information to program appropriately. And so when it comes to separating yourself, you can't really separate yourself if you're just in doing things in general. When you go at things generally and without not specifically, you get kind of general results. When it's something really, you attack something really specific, that's when you can get those specific results, and that helps you take that next big jump. You know, for some of our guys who kind of like that this isn't necessarily level. We're talking like a pitcher who's like 86 to 88 and wants to make that next jump to 90, or a guy who's 90 to 92. Those jumps start to get a lot harder, and you got to be a lot more specific with what you're trying to do to make those things happen. You can just get strong, put on some weight, and your velo will go up if you're low 80s or some or a little bit in the 70s. Like those things that are more general can help you. But when you start wanting to make those jumps that start to get a little bit tougher, start needing more specific things to help you do or take those next steps. It's the same thing with hitting. You know, if you get in the beginning, you get stronger, you start moving a little faster, bat speed starts to improve. But now when you start wanting to take that step that puts you at that, you know, 1%, 2%, top 2%, that's where the more specificity comes in. Understanding how your body works and making sure you're rotating appropriately. Understanding how important the posture and where the body is affects how you move and when trying to swing, and your alignment, how your bat's able to stay on plane for a better or longer. And those little things become much more specific the closer you get to that 1-2% that you're trying to get to. So I guess at the end of it, it comes down to just having a plan that is specific. Have a plan, a program that is helping you work on the things that you need to work on. And for most of our athletes, that's, when they're in the position to want or need to make that jump and get more specific and put themselves at the top, they need a plan that's more specific to what they're trying to do and where they're trying to get. If you're a D1 guy or want to be a D1 guy and understanding like, okay, this is where I'm at right now. I see the comp player that is at the D1 school I want to go to. What do I need? I need to find out what I need to do to get around those metrics, for lack of a better word, and then do the specific things that are going to help me take that step. Like if you're a guy who is a shortstop trying to play D1 baseball, you need to run a 6.6 60. You have to be spending more time sprinting, and every athlete should sprint. That's just a top thing that you should be doing, no matter your position. But understanding like what you're trying to do, and where you're trying to get, and then the program should be specific to that. Like if you're trying to get faster, specificity matters. So if you're trying to get faster, you need to practice the things that you're trying to get better at sprinting. If you want to throw harder, you need to practice throwing harder. Now, this all comes within a plan. It's not like just every day I go out there and just let it rip or swing as hard as I can or just sprint max every day and think I'm going to get the results, because your body will start slowing down. Your repetitive stress starts to become an issue, and now we start to not see the results that we're looking for. So, number one, have a plan in the weight room. And I think I should have touched on this first. Like every high school athlete, at least that cares, is probably doing some sort of lifting. Start in the weight room, doing the things that they need to do. But the specificity of it, a plan that's tailored to you, being able to use data to organize your program is what's going to help you separate yourself from the average to the above average. And as a high schooler, like the physical maturity, the physical the growth for everyone's going to be at a different time. Some guys are going to physically mature a little bit at a younger age. Some guys are going to physically mature at as a senior. But if you're doing the right things, putting yourself in the right environment, and practicing or training the right way and towards what you're trying to accomplish, when you finally do hit that time where your physical maturity starts to happen, or you start to physically mature, then when everything clicks, that's when you see those big jumps and you separate yourself. We've had guys who might not be at that top 1% when they started training, or let's say a junior in high school, where they stayed consistent, they kept doing the things that they needed to do, and then finally the physical maturity happened, and all the work they were putting in that was specific to what they needed to do, where they were trying to get, everything started to click, and then you see those huge jumps. And that is something that I think comes with having that plan, being focused on what you need and sticking to it. Number two, I think this is without saying, but it's the most important, is consistency. And I think if you're not consistent, you can't have high expectations. And so I think just because you work out once or twice a week, or you just started, you can't expect to have these big results. You have to be consistent with everything you're doing. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a when I feel good type thing. It's understanding that I have to be consistent, and I have to understand what I'm trying to accomplish, And if I do that and I'm consistent towards that, then I give myself a chance. We talk to our athletes about this all the time, but a lot of athletes are motivated for a certain amount of time, but motivation for everyone kind of will fall off. It just happens. It doesn't. No one's always motivated to train. Not one guy is like, I want to go train every second all the time, or I want to do this or I want to do that. But the guys who do see or have success and take those jumps that they're looking for are consistent. The consistency is where it comes from, and that consistency comes from the discipline of making sure you do what you're supposed to do day in, day out. And so when you have that discipline and you have the right mindset and able to stay disciplined to what you're trying to accomplish, that's where consistency comes from. And so instead of always trying to rely on the motivation and the think that you're going to just want to, that's just probably not going to happen. I mean, everyone has those ebbs and flows in their training, but the guys who see the biggest results are definitely consistent, and that's because they have great discipline with what they're trying to accomplish. And within that, and this kind of is a separate, it could be another topic or another quality, but we're going to add attention to detail. Like the guys who are consistent and not only just show up, but actually show up with a purpose are the guys who see the results that help separate them to be that upper echelon high school athlete. And so when we're talking about attention to detail, it's not just coming in and lifting. It's not just lifting to lift, but it's like every lift has a purpose. It has an intent. It has a focus behind it. And that's the same thing from the skill work or the hitting, the throwing, whatever it is. The attention to detail is there. It's understanding, like, although not every throw or every lift is going to be max effort, the focus and attention to detail of how the rep should look and the intent, and I don't mean intent from a max, intent of trying to make sure I'm doing it right is there, and that's how good things happen. And so the athletes that that separate themselves are the ones that every day come in not allowing themselves to kind of fall into that trap of, oh, I don't want to be here and I'm just going to kind of go through the motions. And then that's where bad habits start to happen. That's where guys get left behind. And that's where we don't see the results that you're looking for. And so when we're talking about how to be consistent, how to separate yourself, you have to also include attention to detail of how you go about your work. And if you don't go about your work with that same mindset, plus you're not consistent, you're not going to see the results that help separate you to be that 1-2% that is able to be those top high school players, and then put yourself in a position to move on and play at the next level. And the best thing I could say to help you be more consistent: 1, set goals. 2, create a plan of, and this can be with your coach, your guy who writes your programs. If you don't have someone that writes your programs, this is where you sit down and put a plan together of like, okay, these are my goals. These are the days I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Have your week filled out. Understanding, okay, these days I'm doing and this is obviously prior to starting to practice, but I'm taking ground balls, and if I'm an infield, I'm taking ground ball and swings on this day, and then I'm going to lift, and then every day of the week is laid out. When you have that, and you just gotta go, and then you have it laid out, and then you just have to go execute it. It's gonna make it a lot easier. Something else you can do that I think just gives you a sense of accomplishment is if you make out a schedule, and then each day that you're able to actually cross out that schedule or put an X through that day that you accomplished what you were trying to accomplish, then um, then good things are able to happen. And so I think sometimes having that reward of you doing it and getting to where you need or you want to get, make sure you have a calendar and put marks X's on that calendar, and that will help you take that next step and be more consistent and remember why you're doing this and what's driving you. So that would be my one suggestion. If you're looking for ways to help yourself be more consistent, make a plan, write down your goals, make a plan, and put it somewhere where you can see it every day. And then when you do it, put an X through it showing that you did it. And you start to see those X's add up. You start to see your results start to kind of get better. You start to see, start to feel better about yourself. And then that's where good things start to happen. And I think you're not always going to see instant gratification, but the more consistent you are, the better you start to see those results happen, the more you want. And it's like, oh, this is starting to feel good. I'm starting to like see the results that I'm looking for. And then you want more and you want to take that next step and that next step. So don't let yourself get past the point or get to the point where you're not able to, because you're not consistent, see the work that you're putting in happen. And so trust it, trust your plan, trust your process. Good things can happen. Last thing I would say, and this is what kind of comes in with all of it, is just the overall mental approach and like just openness to wanting to get better and wanting to accept criticism, for the lack of a better word. You know, I think a lot of guys, they want to get better. They want to see the results, but they don't allow themselves to do so. They get in their own ways. And there's guys at the top that do this too, you know, for different, but at the end of the day, you know, sometimes we see our guys that aren't making the jumps that they want to, but they're getting their way. They're getting their own personal way, so they can't do the things that they wanted to do, if that makes sense. Meaning, you know, not being able, if they have a bad rep, not being able to look past that bad rep to make the adjustment for the next rep. A pitch isn't what they were hoping for, and so now they're more worried about the last pitch than being able to worry about the next pitch to take that next step to help see themselves improve. Same thing happens in, you know, guys who can't gain weight, guys who aren't hitting the way they want to. Their numbers in the weight room aren't going up. Whatever it is, when they start worrying about what's not happening, what happened in the past, and it starts to bring in a negative effect, then we're not able to look forward, make the adjustments that we need to look, and worry about how we can make the change that we're hoping for. And so I think for in terms of separating yourself, you have to go about how can I fix this? What do I need to do to make that next step? That last rep wasn't what I wanted. This is what I'm going to do to make this rep be what I want. And I start doing that. I start changing the mindset and not letting the past get in your way. And you can start making strides forward to make the appropriate changes that you're looking for. And I would say another big thing, or with that, is when you have a little more free mind, more of a like, I want to fix it versus that sucked mindset, it frees you up. And when that freedom mentally happens, it allows everything else to happen a lot easier. Like when something negative is on the mind, your body moves slower, your reactiveness, those things that you're trying to do just aren't they aren't going to produce what you're hoping to produce. And for the point of this podcast is what's going to help bring you into that 1%, that what's going to separate you. And So having that a strong mental approach, the approach of I want to get better, I want to improve. If I don't want to, or if I don't do a rep the way I hoped, how do I fix it? How do I make it what I want it to be? And that's one thing I would say with when working with the big leaguer guys. Like, it's not, yes, if they have bad reps too. It's not, they're not like, but they don't dwell on it. It's more, and sure, they get upset. They don't have perfect pens or perfect BP sessions. Like, that happens. Everyone has that uh same thing happen to them at different times. But when they have a bad rep, it's like, how do I fix it? What do I need to do to make an adjustment on this pitch? And they focus on that adjustment. Same thing after a pen, they're focused on how do I make my next pen better? What am I going to do? What steps am I going to take to leading up to my next pen so that it's the way I want it to be, that I can feel comfortable to make that next jump? And so that is where I would say your ability to have the right mental approach and mindset to allow yourself to get better, to allow yourself to make adjustments, is key in you taking that 1%. And so it's not, you can't worry about the last one. You can't worry about not doing something. It's more, how can I make this adjustment? And this doesn't mean you don't care or you don't get upset or you don't have bad outings, any of the, whatever it is, whether it's an in game or out of game. It's more, how do I use that frustration and then use it as a way to learn and be like, okay, I'm going to make this adjustment for this next X, Y, and Z, and then I'm going to get back on track or get to where I want to get. So I hope that helped. I hope that gave you a little bit of a framework of what it takes to help separate yourself from the top. Obviously, have a plan in the weight room, and when I mean, like, do something that's specific to you, that's going to help separate you, what's going to help show you what you need to specifically do to take that next step, whether it's using force plate data to understand what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, and then having that strongly bias or be based off how your program is written. That's what something I would say is number one. Number two, consistency, being in the gym. Everyone is working out. Everyone is doing their skill work when they want to, when they're motivated. But can you do it when you're not motivated, but you're sticking to your plan, you're disciplined, and you know what your ultimate goal is? And then when you're doing with that consistency comes attention to detail. And I think the more consistent you are and you have that discipline, and for me, that discipline and attention to detail kind of go hand in hand. You're not just doing it to do it, but there's actual like intent behind what you're trying to do. That's how you separate yourself. And last, that mental approach. You have the ability of like a positive / just not forward thinking, but just want to improve each time, and being able to use that mental approach of like, okay, that wasn't what I wanted, but I'm going to do this on this next one, and then I'm going to get to what I want, or this is what I'm going to do to fix it. But if you have that, instead of the just worrying about the past, focusing on the last rep, not being able, just getting frustrated from the negative before, then you're not going to be able to allow yourself to move forward. When we talk about separating yourself, there's obviously like the physical, getting bigger, faster, stronger, throwing harder and things like that. But these little steps are going to help you take that next jump and put yourself in a position to be at that top 1 to 2%. And what I mean by that is you consistently sticking to these habits, and the habits of good programming or good training, and consistency, good mental approach. And is it going to always be perfect? No, but the more you stick to this, the better it's going to be. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives you a little bit of what you need to do to help take that next step. If you have any questions or there's any way we can help, please reach out. With that, I appreciate you listening. As always, you can reach us at rossistraining.com. You can also reach us at Rossi's Training on Instagram. And until the next one, thank you for listening.